If this is what Venus looks like decloaked, then it is quite possible that three L-shaped objects in straight line formation look like this when they are cloaked. One of the key targets was the firewall and the Sith. This is also the location of the Papal Gate. One of the weapons being used is called a gust bomb. As one launches, the other is retrieved. They've been launching these at the firewall the entire time as they plowed their way forward. Serpentarius has been removed from the information. Much has been altered, including the north, south, east, and west direction. It was taught that the 13th sign only arrived at the end of the cycle. On its back it carries the pit. As I watched, the pit formed on time. It then slowly moved into our area, and while people were saying this large object, thousands of times the size of any planet, was Herculobus or Nibiru, we knew it was the filter, which is called the pit. It arrived on time with Serpentarius. NASA lies when it calls these lines on these graphs the armatures holding up the disk. That is just quite simply not true. Everyone awake was watching the cube ships and the other ships fighting in and around the sun with massive weapons fire that NASA continuously calls lens flares. The East Gate was the main prize. It is the doorway to our domain, and Lilith had broken it. The One repaired it, and it started to open. By October, it appeared that the Greys lost the Earthship Prometheus, and it became stranded and abandoned at the Eye. As it continued to open while the fight continued, people on Earth started reporting 3 suns. One of the funnier tales, for which I have no images, occurred at this time. The Father of Man, whom you will meet in person, is an old salt. After all, he built this place. I had been openly talking about what I was seeing and what was removed from books, and Ra, who was working openly with the military, set spies on me. And while I was pointing to one area of space, and their spies were reporting this back, the Father of Man took a crew and snuck around behind them, and he caught Ra by surprise at the sun, and he drew the image of a skull on the sun, which completely freaked Ra out. And it still leaves me laughing because it reminds me of this. And in a spectacular move in this Wizard of Oz place, God stole the eye right from underneath him and hid it. And as of January, the eye was no longer seen at the sun, and no one questions why NASA's mysterious lens flares have suddenly cleared up. The pit continued to move to its final position, and by February it was in place in front of the sun. There are a number of planet ships protecting us now, but 2 in particular are in orbit with us. They are maintaining a defensive stance against the Sith at the sun. The key to spotting them is to watch for the light flashing from their mast. As we watched, the Papal Key was struck. The top node was blown off. Contrary to what we've been told about space, you could see a visible fire and smoke. It remained burning for quite some time. The 2 nodes at the bottom are masked. This destroys any hope that the Covens had of escape. As we continued to watch the battle from February until now, the Allies deployed a pincher array at Venus which captured Mercury. Multiple large explosions could be seen. One beam from Venus struck the top of the Earth pole, while a beam from the Sun struck the bottom, and the Allies docked Venus and Mercury's planet ships together. And they remain in this position, huddled in a corner. As we watched the changing images, we saw the mob's image change to the image of a hand. We could see that it had grabbed something, and it appeared to be a head grabbed by the throat. It was not till NASA labeled it that we saw that it was Saturn. And this is when we knew that Saturn had been captured. We then noticed that a gust bomb was poised in front of Jupiter with a mob behind him, neither were moving. And this is when we knew that all the enemy forces had been captured and held still for our move. Meanwhile on Earth, the one was holding Earth in a gamma burst, which has a high vibratory rate. This served multiple purposes. Anything which emits a low frequency or a negative frequency is zeroed out by the higher oscillating wave. The Moloch and the L and the other parasites that have taken human hosts are weakening and dying. HARP, which is being used to target individuals as well as entire populations with ultra-low frequency to increase fear, is also being overwhelmed. Elizabeth Lilith and the Vatican were claiming an esoteric debt on their followers and claiming them for Anne. The one used the subconscious knock to offer his gift among those who were redeemable, but their minds were so locked in fear they unwittingly refused his offer. The gamma burst is to erase their debt and their fear so that they can respond to the subconscious knock. And while the Allied forces kept the enemy busy, the one moved the shop right out from underneath Anne. On March 11th, Earth took flight off her pole, leaving Anne and the Asgartha tunnels behind, and then he dropped a nuke down the inside of the pole. This is what the Earth looks like off her pole. On the 11th, we watched captured Saturn slowly move to exit the mob. Saturn's cube ships had been destroyed, and by the 17th, it appeared as though they were going to dock Saturn and Jupiter. But on Wednesday, March 19th, the Allies destroyed Jupiter. Mars was run to the same corner with Venus, where the same pinchers extended and the same explosions occurred. Mars is now docked with Venus and Mercury. By the 21st, all debt owed to Anne had been wiped out. He has completely lost his share of the division of the families. They will now turn full attention to Earth. The only debt left is owed to mankind, not just because of the slaughter they had done, but because the covens and their priesthood had offered their followers up as a source of food and a source of host, which allowed the invaders to present as men and spiritually enlightened beings, when in fact all of them were the branch of Set, and their purpose was to get oaths and vows so that they could seal people at the time of the division of the families without informing people of what that meant, or that they had been sealed without their conscious, knowledgeable consent to any other branch other than man.